And greetings, fellow humans. This is the first official Writer Wednesday, and I had to do it with a very, very special friend. I have my good friend, Annika O.A. Howdyn here. We have a lot to discuss. We've been pending to do this for a long, long, long time. She's good people, and she's proof that you can meet great people on social media, especially on Instagram, which is where we connected. I don't remember how, but we'll get into that. Anyways, Annika, tell us who you are, how you doing, what you're doing, and then we'll just continue.
All right, so yeah, my name is Annika Howdyn. As JD said, we met on Instagram. I don't know how long ago, like at least 4 years ago, 4 or 5. It's been a
At
while.
least
I'm not here for a
it's
while.
it's
Um,
been a while.
yeah, yeah. But I am an author. I'm focusing on my fantasy stuff. So I'm a fantasy author. I'm also writing the contemporary space as well, and have a couple books under my belt. I'm a mom. I'm a cat person. I have my cat right here hanging out
It's
with
the
me.
cutest
So
thing. What's your cat's name?
his name is Randall Poffo, named after the wonderful Macho Man Randy Savage from wrestling. So
I did recognize the name, and although I don't think it's the official Mount Rushmore, he is in my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. He
yes,
was he
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 is.
was the best.
He is in our house as well. He is, but definitely in the one of the faces up there. So yeah, but yeah, that's I don't know what else you want to know about me. I don't know.
We want to
I'm
know
bad with
everything.
introductions. I'll just say that. I'm like, hi, my name is this. I'm here. Let's talk.
Well, Well, just to show how loosey goosey this is, I didn't introduce myself. I am JD Estrada. I have written 22 books. I'm from Puerto Rico, and I was just really eager to get into this conversation. So let's continue with that. So,
All right.
the next question, you did mention that you also get into contemporary. The thing is that a lot of people debate whether they should use a different pen name or not, and you have actually explored this option.
Mm-hmm.
So, O.A. Howden and D. Allison, can you walk us through the difference between each of those voices, how you arrived to each of those pen names, and also, would you recommend for people to dial into one author name or whatever works for them? I don't know. First off, I want to explore that duality. How did you arrive to those two names?
Yeah, sure. I'll get into that. So when I originally got serious about being an author, I didn't want to use my real name because my last name is really hard to pronounce. And so is my maiden name. So I was like, I can't really use that last name. So I wanted to create a name that people that would go with the genre I was planning to write under the name, and then just be something easy. So I created the first pen name I created was D. Allison Howlett. D because that's the last initial of my real last name. Allison because it was the name my parents were going to name me, but then when I was born, they changed their minds. And Howlett because it's the last name of James Howlett, who was Wolverine, and he's one of my favorite superheroes. So that's where that name came from. It took like a couple days to figure that out, but that's where that name came from. That was originally going to be the name I used for my fantasy stuff. That's what I was really wanted to get into with that name. But down the line, as I was writing my fantasy stuff, I've always kind of written in multiple genres from the beginning. I really love fantasy. That's like where my heart is at, is in the fantasy space. But I always had ideas for other stories, other genres as well. So I got this idea for a story from a dream that I had, and I started writing a draft for it. And I actually finished it in like 3 months. And I was like, this story is really good. And I had kind of like um, a minute to like think about what I wanted to do with this book, and I really wanted to publish this book first before any of my fantasy stuff. So, in the book I wrote was a young adult contemporary coming of age story. So it no fantasy at all, just all real world stuff. And I see Alison Howlett got stuck with that genre. And then I started writing more books of the same caliber under that genre. I wrote a second book with the same characters for that under the D. Allison name, and then I wrote like a novella under that name as well. So that took place over the course of like 3 years. And I was establishing like a presence on Instagram, on Facebook with that name, and like a personality with it was very much me. Like my quirky, silly, nerdy personality is all D. Allison Howlett. That's like my that's who I am, but it's that. And then I would say the second year after I published my first book, I started really itching to get into fantasy again. So my writing styles for fantasy and contemporary are completely different. I'm very playful, very like just inappropriate as far as like language goes and like actions go with the Alison Howlett's persona with that kind of writing. And with fantasy, I'm very much very poetic, very like Gregorian style, old kind of style of writing. My voice is very different. And when I was figuring out how I was going to write this fantasy stuff, and I wanted to get fantasy stuff published really bad. It's something I've been working on for since like 2012. I'm working on this fantasy world that I made, and I was really itching to get them published. And I was like, I don't want people to get confused. If I write under one pen name, they're going to see I'm writing this like teenage drama, coming of age, like, you know, teen angst, quirkiness voice, and then they're going to see this voice, which is completely different. They're the people who are reading like my contemporary side are going to not understand the difference, like why this isn't who you are. This isn't the author that I read here. So it took a lot of debate, and I asked a lot of other authors what they thought about it as well. I got a lot of input from other people about splitting up my author personas based on my style of writing. And then obviously I decided to split it up because I didn't want fans of my contemporary stuff to get confused if I came out with something that was completely different from what I usually wrote. So that's where Annika Howdyn came in, which is basically my real name with one letter taken out, and Howdyn is just an adaptation of Howlett. I just kind of, you know, just an adaptation of that. That's where that came from. Okay. So that's why I did the split. As far as if authors should do that, I think it just really depends on the author and your style of writing. If you have a style of writing that is easily translated between the genres, like if you write like historical fiction or, you know, even contemporary fiction, but you also write like urban fantasy or something like that, and your voice is very similar, then you could probably just do it all under the same name. But if you have completely different styles of writing, as far as like how you write, what words you use, like the tone and the eloquence of your writing, then I would suggest breaking it up, because you don't want to confuse your readers. If you have a good fan base of readers who love one genre that you write, and you write a completely different genre, and it sounds completely different, doesn't sound like what you've written before, your fans might feel betrayed, I guess you could say. They might stop following you, or, I mean, it's a great way to get new fans in. But then if new fans come in and they read a book that you read this type of genre book that you wrote, and they see that you've written other books, and they go to read something else, and it's completely different, it's not gonna connect with them, and they might have a falling out. That was my deduction as far as why I did it. As far as other authors doing it, I would just, depends on your writing style. And if your writing styles are similar, you probably can get away with just having one. But if your writing styles are completely different, you probably should split it
up. I've made my life extremely difficult writing under the same pen name, different genres. But from the get-go, from the first event that I had middle grade short stories, I had poetry, and I had Only Human, my first novel. So from the get-go, I'm telling people, this is me, this is varied, and I established from the get-go that you don't know what I'm going to bring. All you can have for sure is that every year I'm going to publish something, and for the last 10 years I have published at least one book every year. For your sanity, I don't recommend that for your wallet either. But I asked because I always find that fascinating. Some people can do it effectively. What I've seen from some people is that they focus a little more on one of the voices or one of their personas rather than both of them, or being equal. With hard. You, I think it's you're in this OA season, but you've also had Diali seasons, and my impression is that it keeps it fresh for you. Is that true?
It does. It definitely keeps it fresh. Like I said, the reason, like when I first started being serious as an author, I really wanted to work on the fantasy stuff, and then it shifted to contemporary, and I didn't really like do any fantasy stuff for at least 2 years. And And then when I started getting back into the fantasy thing, I was like, okay, I really want to just focus on this now. I don't want to focus on anything else. And I was even thinking maybe I can do both, but I really can't break myself up that way. I can't write my fantasy stuff, which is really dark and really like just like a little bit. It's depressing sometimes writing that stuff, like really depressing and melancholy, and then switch to like this quirky, like lighthearted. It's really hard for me to do that, like on the drop of a dime. And if I really want to get something written and done, I can't flip flop between those two parts of me easily. So I have to just focus on one thing and then do it. And then once it's done, then I could shift and focus on other things. Not that I haven't written multiple drafts at the same time before, because I have, but usually not a fantasy and then I can like a quirky contemporary. Usually I can't do that. It's too hard for me.
Okay, so does Annika wear the glasses and Diali not wear the glasses, or vice versa, or is that?
Annika's the glass. I mean, I need glasses, but I don't wear them at all for the Diali persona. And I mean, I don't wear them all the time for this one either. But like, it's like that's what's on all my like not Facebook. I don't have Facebook for this one, but like Instagram and Threads and my author bio stuff is all me with glasses. And on Diali, I don't have glasses. And my hair was also pink as Diali, so it's like now my hair is darker. So I think it's like a more even shift now. But well, I don't think I'll dye my hair pink again for Diali. I think I'll just stick it with what. But I won't have glasses on.
Well, you've told me that blue and pink both require a lot of maintenance for the hair.
They do. Yeah. This is much easier to do. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I put like color in the tips, but it's all faded now. I got to redo it, but it's much easier to do a nice natural color.
I only have one hue. I don't think I would look better with any other hair color. So props to you to be able to do that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Something that I really love about you and your work is that, first off, you're not afraid to try new stuff. And I always find that admirable, because there's always that trepidation that people have, and you're like, I think this is what I have to do, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to figure it out in a way that I'm going to do that it's me. And for me, that is always there's some people that want to find the 10 steps to do the things and they follow it to the T. You're like, okay, let me find several 10 steps and then I'll do my 10 steps. And I think that's the most responsible way. It takes more time, but I think at the end of the day, it's more comfortable. You've also explored, I've seen several people explore doing a Kickstarter, and yours, I think, has taken you a bit by surprise. Can you talk to us a little bit about your Kickstarter, the process, and how it surprised you?
Yeah, so when I decided to switch to my fantasy writing, I self-published the other books that I wrote. Did all myself. I mean, I hired editors and cover designers, did all that. But it's not unless you have like a super huge following, you don't make a lot of money doing it. You spend more than you make. So when I switched to my fantasy stuff, I knew this was going to be a more robust book, much larger book as far as like page count goes and word count goes. The scale, it's world building because it's fantasy, so there's a lot of different elements in it. So I knew it was going to take a lot more money and a lot more time to get this book done. And I'm like, I don't want to put myself in a hole again with just doing it all myself. I want to find another way to do it. And there's one author that I follow and admire very, very much. Her name is J.R. Frontera. She's writes steampunk westerns. And I've been following her for a long time. I met her in like a Facebook group, and she did a Kickstarter for her book, one of her books, and it did really, really well. And she did another one, and she did another one. And every time she did the Kickstarter, she made more and more money. Now she's doing a Kickstarter for a movie off one of her books, which just blows my mind. I'm so impressed by her. She's like a rock star. And I'm like, wow. Oh my God, if she can do this, why can't I do this? So I picked her brain a lot, asked her a lot of questions, and she gave me a lot of good advice, books to get, like where to go as far as like advice goes. So then I decided with the fantasy stuff, like I'm just going to do a Kickstarter. I've never done one before. I never even really backed one before. So as soon as like 2024 hit, like January 2nd, 2024, I was researching and reading and doing all the things, finding out how to use Kickstarter. Luckily, my husband, he backs a lot of Kickstarter stuff. He's a big video game nerd, so he backs a lot of board games and video games and stuff. So he was like, oh, I could help you with this too. So that was super helpful as well. So it's a lot of work because it's a new territory. But it's very so it's a lot to learn, but it's been very like rewarding, and it's been super like I feel super supported in it. Even though there's a lot of people that I have never met, like I never met you in person, but like people that will never meet in person, but there's just such a great group of people that are willing to help you make a successful Kickstarter. Or for anything. It doesn't have to be Kickstarter, it could be anything, like author, entrepreneur, whatever the heck you want to do. So it's been like a super rewarding experience because I've met so many great people, and there's so many people out there that want to support it, that it's been like a great experience. And it's been a lot of work though. Like I took this whole year I spent working on this Kickstarter. I wanted to get it right. And when I first conceptualized it, I was, you think big. I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna be so great. I'm gonna have all this stuff. And then as I got closer and closer to the launch, which is going to be next month in September, I was like, okay, I can't do it this big. I'm going to spend way too much money, and I'm going to just put myself in a pit. I need to like think small. Um, because you see all these campaigns, and they have like all these amazing things that they offer their backers, like Q&As with the author. They offer like beautifully designed books with all these illustrated pages, and they have like candles and all this like fancy stuff. And I'm like, this is so cool, but it costs so much. It's a lot. It's money,
Yeah.
and unless you're gonna fund, I was just getting so overwhelmed. So I shrunk it down a lot from my first conception of it. That was a little humbling, realizing that you have to just think small first, be successful first, and then okay, how can I make this better, and then grow from there. Which I kind of should have gotten from my author friend who inspired me to do it, because she started really small with her first campaign, and then it just grew and grew and grew every other one she did, until now she's doing a movie. And like that's like the biggest thing. Like, I can't even imagine doing that. Like that's just like, whoa, like you got directors and producers and actors, and you're gonna film this, and like that's just the coolest thing. But yeah, I get to start small, so it's very little bit humbling, and nerve-wracking, because you gotta worry about shipping, you gotta worry about production of all the stuff, you gotta worry about canceled pledges, how much money you're gonna make, if you're even gonna fund. So it's a lot. I know once it launches, I'm gonna be so nervous, and I'm gonna be a wreck. I'm preparing for the wrecked months between
Oh,
ending and fulfillment. So,
lots of chamomile tea. Lots of
yeah,
chamomile tea.
and
Lots of
chocolate cake,
aromatherapy.
and
Yes.
yeah, and espresso, cold brew, coffee.
Well, the caffeine, I'm not so sure. Okay, but you bring a couple of interesting topics. First off, you said that people that you've never met and that you don't know in real life are
Yeah,
some of your more staunch supporters. My experience is that it's harder to sell your wares to people that you know and that know
yeah,
you from another context than people that know you exclusively from your creative work.
yeah.
So a couple of questions there. Do you think that Diali had more of a following than Annika? Do you think it's just different people? And also, what's the most random place where you have either a reader or a fan from?
Um, I would say I feel like that Annika has way more of a voice than Diali ever did. I just have a feeling that it's like this is. I don't know if it's because when I first decided to be an author, I wanted to be a fantasy author. I didn't think about writing in any other genre but fantasy. And now that I am, maybe I'm just noticing it more, because this is like the first like thing that I wanted to do was like, I want to be a fantasy author. Like I never said I want to be a young adult contemporary author. Like I never thought that until I started writing more in more different spaces. But maybe that's why. But I feel like I'm noticing more. There's way more like support and just a way more interest in it than contemporary stuff. I don't know. I mean, I guess it probably would be even more if I was just strictly a romance author, because romance is giant. It's like a giant thing. And maybe if I was just a romance author, I'd have 10 times the amount of attention. But that's not happening, because I can't just write strictly romance. It's too sappy for me. Sorry. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because I always wanted to be the fantasy first, and now that I am, it just feels like I'm noticing it more. I
Mhm.
don't know.
No, that
That
makes
could
sense.
be
And I
it.
also ask, where's the most random place that you have a fan from?
Um, I don't. Honestly, no. I feel like I have more fans in like different countries. Like I had this one, the person who did my maps for my fantasy books. She is Romanian, but she's like, well, they, sorry, that's their pronoun is they. They're really awesome. Like they're like super cool. And she's like, and I keep saying she, but the other day. Sorry, this might have to be
It's
edited
it
out.
it's so no, it's something that I've had to learn with. I actually have a friend who's agender, and I have another friend who's asexual, and it's having to learn grammar again just to be respectful
Yeah,
and mindful.
like
So
I don't want to disrespect them because I know they go by they and I'm saying she, but I'm like no no she's they. So I'm just trying to be respectful. But yeah, they've been really supportive and she's been so great to like get to know. And I also like met I mean I have a lot of I don't know about fans, but just like friends that I've made, like in England, like I talked to this one girl, Joe from England, like we send each other like 20-page emails once a month about like our life and everything. And it's just it's just you and me out of the blue one day. It's like, hey, I think make good friends. Like, here's my life story, and I'm like, okay. So then we just started talking, and we're like pen pals now. It's just crazy how the people that you can meet that you've never thought you'd meet before. Um,
and I think people take that for granted too, because people are so focused on the numbers and connections and what's trending and whatnot.
yeah,
And
gets in the
again,
way.
we connected because we had similar interests, and because it's like, this person is cool, and via that, it's like I've learned about your projects, your books, your and all the things that you're going for, and it's easy to support because you
Yeah.
see it and you go like, man, I'm rooting for you because part of me really wants to try that, and I'm gonna see what you're doing and I'm gonna learn.
Right. Right. And I feel like there's so much, like, honestly, I don't know why people need to be so rude and like want to bring people down with things that they're trying, they're like putting their hearts and their souls into. Why can't you just be, it's so easy to say, like, you're doing great, like, keep going, like, this is awesome. Just, it goes such a long way. I mean, I've seen both sides of the author space as far as people who just love to criticize and people who are super supportive. And I don't understand why when someone like asks a question, even if you think it's the dumbest question in the world about like how I should be writing or anything that has to do with being an author, and people just shut them down. I think that's why would you want to stomp out at anyone's dreams? We should be nurturing those people and helping them. I don't see the like the rise. I don't understand people like that. I mean, so I just try to be as supportive as I can, even if I don't know you, even if I just met you, if I just started following you on Instagram, for example, and you're saying you have a book coming out in like 2 weeks, I will comment and give you all the support I can to help you get that book seen or just to encourage you to keep writing, you know?
That's that's how some people get their jollies by writing a scathing review or putting other people down,
Yeah.
or they
I like those reviews though. I like those scathing reviews. They
you're
entertain the
you're
crap out of me.
you're
Like
feeding the wrong fires.
some of the things they say, I read, I don't know who it was, but someone posted a 1-star review, and the review said this author got spelled all of these words wrong, and the author is from England, so they have different, some words are spelled differently over there. So I'm like, do you know the author is from the UK? That's why I recognize, so it's an S and not a Z. That's why. And they're like, oh yeah, there's all these spelling
Color.
errors in this book. I'm just like, wow, you just don't know. Ignorance, it's bliss. But it was just so funny. Like, something was such a funny
Nah, I
review.
don't get it. If you're not into something, scroll, change the
Yeah,
channel or something. And some people just can't fight that urge to say something absolutely
yeah,
awful. And it's like, I don't know. If for me, if you can be genuinely happy for someone you don't know or someone that you do know, why not?
right.
And I have friends who have so many different types of businesses, from photographers to people who work with ceramics and stuff like that, to fellow authors, to musicians. And when you take the time to ask someone what they're doing, what they're into, etc., and you give them the opportunity to get past the self-doubt and the insecurities of like, okay, I'm going to talk about what I like and I don't want to sound like a dork, uh, you see that person glow and shine a little bit, and for
Yeah,
me, that's always extremely rewarding. And it can be any age, it can be any gender, it be any nationality. You know, when you tell someone, tell me about your dreams, and you're listening, and you're not just waiting for your turn to
right.
to say
Yeah,
your part, your spiel. It's you get some really cool friends that way.
I agree.
uh
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I'm a good listener. I'm not so good at talking about myself. So there are people that I know that don't know that I'm even an author. That's my own problems I have to deal with because
which is
I,
I which is why I wanted to have this chat.
yeah.
I
So like,
wanted
oh
people
yeah,
to
like you
know
don't even
you.
know that I have coworkers who don't even know that I wrote books or like I'm writing a book. But it's just that's my own hurdle I need to get over with my
Mhm.
anxiety. But yeah, when there's someone like just like for you, so for example, like I've known you for a while and you know a lot about me as far as my writing goes, even like my personal life stuff. I mean, some of it like family or whatever. But like I'm comfortable talking with you, and I'm sure if I met you in real life, I'd probably like freeze and be like, "Oh my God, you're right," and then I'd be like, "Okay." After like a while, I'll be all right. But
Yeah,
it's just
what you get online and what you get in a video is what you get in real life.
yeah.
I
For
have
you,
too many
I totally
projects.
believe that.
I have too many projects to have a persona. Some people, they have
Right.
their they have their author voice when they're speaking. They speak with this tone and stuff like that.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
when they talk on the phone. When I talk with a sales rep for a bank, it's me, and I'm cracking jokes, and they're trying to be respectful, and it's like, I'm gonna make you laugh. I'm gonna make you
Yeah.
laugh because I know you hate your job, but I know I want to be the story that you tell your coworker.
Yeah.
Uh,
I always enjoy when like people like who are calling you for like a job, like oh, like a bank or whatever. I like when they're like a little bit more like when they have their personality in the call. I feel more comfortable than if they're just like, you know, blah 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 blah. Like this is my stone face, this is my work face. Like yeah, you're a person. I know you don't talk about this to your kids. You know?
it's like we all poop, my friends. We all poop,
Yeah,
and people forget that we
yeah.
all poop.
We all poop, we
Uh,
all fart, we all burp. It's like that's what we do. We're humans.
it's like that. Okay, getting back to you into other stuff that you're into. Recently, you announced that you're launching HenDragon Press.
Hmm.
So because you didn't have enough anxiety. You wanted to do
Right. Yeah.
your own press, and you're like, this is going to be a small thing, and then you had a response. So
Yeah.
2024 has had the Kickstarter full on in at the beginning,
Hmm.
and later you can tell me what awards or what prizes for the different tiers. We can talk a little bit about that, but
Sure.
from Kickstarter to starting a press and getting that ball rolling, which one do you think was more intense? Uh,
Definitely.
and and how did the press surprise you? Because the response that I've seen, I was I probably got dimples from smiling at the reaction that you were getting.
Yeah. So the press was definitely more of a shock. Because I at least I at least planned the Kickstarter. Like I planned it for a while. I wasn't like I was just spontaneously doing it and then launching it in a month. I was planning it for this whole entire year. So I was like building up to it. But the press, I always my plan for my fantasy stuff is to always start up my own like publishing thing to house all my fantasy books. I plan on writing a million of them in this world that I created. So I didn't want it to be my name. I wanted it to be like a press. So I was deciding what I should name the press and everything. Um, and I have chickens. I have a flock of raptors in my backyard. So I love chickens and I love dragons. So I just put hen and dragon together and created HenDragon Press. But within like a week or two of conceptualizing the press, I was like, no, I want to start like an actual press. Like I want to actually start a press where I could publish other authors' work with other author enthusiasts in the publishing. So like I want to do that. And I want to do that like now. So I kind of brainstormed how like a really skeleton like timeline of what I wanted to do. There was a story that I wrote, like a novella that I wrote based on an Aesop fable that I wrote a year ago, and I really liked the story, and I wanted to go back to it under the Allison Howlett name, but I'm shifting it to this one because it's very fantasy based.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'd love to do like a whole anthology of these stories. So that was the first thing. I wanted to do an anthology of stories based off of Aesop's fables because I wrote one, and I think it'd be cool if other authors wrote others as well based on different fables. That was number one. And I knew I wanted to do it on Kickstarter because I learned so much about Kickstarter. And I have a good feeling that I'm going to succeed in this Kickstarter. I don't know how well, but I have a good feeling it's going to fund, at least hit my goal. That's all I needed to do. So I can bring as a way to like publish the book and also pay people. I could use it the Kickstarter as a way to do that. So I knew I wanted to do that. So I had the bare bones outline in like 2 weeks. Then I decided to, and I said, if I want to do this anthology in 2025, which is what I want to start working on as far as getting submissions and stuff, I need to announce this press now, even though I'm still in the thick of this Kickstarter stuff. I'm like, I have to at least announce it so to get, I'm going to need people to help me because I can't do this by
Mhm.
myself. So when I announced it, I thought it'd be like, like 30 likes and people that I usually follow will be like, oh, this is so great and cool, and maybe a couple of shares. But no, it ended up being like on Instagram, it was like over like 350 within the first day as far as likes and comments, and shares were crazy. On Threads, forget it. I lost count how many people commented and liked it and shared it, and I was like, holy shit. So like, what did I just open up? I didn't expect it to be so big. And I set up applications for contracting positions and book club book submissions. Authors can submit their books for the book club the same day. And every time I looked at the contractor submissions, it just grew and grew and grew. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like gonna kill myself. Like, oh my God, I could not believe it. I was like at least a day of complete shock the first day. Second day, it calmed down a little bit. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I was like trying to talk myself into it because it was a big shock of the reaction. I couldn't believe how many people like were the reaction it got. And then everyone that was messaging me and sending me emails and filling out the applications, I was like, this is like overwhelming. I cannot deal with this. So it took a couple of days for me to like settle into the tides of it. But yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts. I couldn't believe I didn't look at Threads for like 3 days straight after that because I was afraid of how much that post got. I think I posted once on Instagram how many likes it got, but like it was way more than that after that post. So,
No, I
yeah.
saw that and I saw it snowball. I saw other people that I know sharing it out, and I was like, she didn't expect this, and I'm
Yeah, I
really
did
happy.
not. I did not. Yeah. But
But
then, but then,
you got a lot of happy problems.
I did. But then I realized, like, okay, I have to be like super serious about this. This can't just be like a willy-nilly thing. Like, I have to be 100% serious about this now because so many people had reactions to it. The reactions were just crazy, and the applications I got were great. And I'm like, I have to treat this like a business. I mean, I think every author should treat their books as a business anyway, but this really have to treat as like I'm the boss
Yeah.
of this business. I'm gonna have to hire people for this business and manage them for this business, and try to do this as right as I could, which is fine because it's not like I haven't done it before as far as my other like my side hustle slash small business that I have since I've had that for a long time. So I know I'm not like new to it. If I was brand new to like having my own business, it would be way more scary. But the fact that I've had my own business since 2018, working online with contracting people, working as a contractor, and working with people like all across the globe, it's not as scary. Um, but the setup is a lot bigger than I'm used to because I was always just doing it by myself. I used to subcontract for my small business when I was really big, when I got really big at one point, because I was just doing so much and I just had a baby, so I was like totally burnt. But a
Yeah,
down,
a burgeoning business and a baby, yeah, that's
yeah, you
fine.
should have. All right, I watched a video that I took like after I opened my business. I think it was like 6 months after I opened it. I did a video because I was looking for subcontractors, and I did like an actual video and I posted it on my Facebook page. JD, the way I looked like a freaking zombie. The bags under my eyes were like down to here. I look like I haven't showered in like 3. I'm like, oh my God, I was such a wreck back. And I'm holding, Duncan was like 6, like he was like 8 months old at the time. I was holding him on my arm. I'm like, I look like I'm gonna like keel over and die. I'm like, I can't believe how horrible I look because I will be working, I'd be a mom during the day and I'd start work at like 9 p.m. and work till like 3 a.m. in the morning. Every day. Every single day. Maybe like Saturday and Sundays I wouldn't, but every single day for like 6 months straight. I was so burnt out. I was like, that I'm never doing that again. I'm like, so that was like motivation for me to like get this right now and not be there in 6 months with the press. Like I need people to help me now. I can't wait until I'm drowning to need help. I need people now. So I'm definitely a learning experience. So
next question. This when I was like, okay, let me try to get different questions and different topics.
sure.
You're currently writing a postpartum fantasy duology. I don't think I've ever
Yes.
heard that sentence in my life.
I haven't either.
So tell us more about that. How does postpartum figure into this story? How did you land on this concept? And what drove you to go for it? Because again, I've never heard that before. And I think it's an opportunity that people are going to be. I think it can be very surprising because again, more than it being fresh, I think it's just something that people don't talk about, much less in a fantasy context.
Right. So when I first wrote this draft, I wrote it in 2012 when I was a child, basically. And it was just like a story, like it was terrible. It was terrible, terribly written. Um, and then I think just like life between then and now, like a lot of shit happened in my life, like I got married, we moved 3 times, I had 2 kids, I've lost jobs and had jobs, and I've worked with a lot of people, like through my small business that I've and learned a lot of things that I've never knew about before. Um, and from being a mom, and I learned a lot about, you know, postpartum, being a mom. I went through it as far as like I went through. So postpartum is a period of time between pregnancy and the first 6 months of your baby being born. That's like the period of it. That's the medical period of it. But honestly, it can last longer than that, than the 6 months. So I actually started working with a client who I still work with who had a postpartum podcast. And at the time when she started it, she was pregnant. And then once she had her baby, the podcast shifted tremendously because she realized how little care there is for moms after birth, how little support there is, and how mental health for women after giving birth is not something that is seen as like a serious problem as far as like the medical stuff. Like, oh, it's just, they'll get over it in 2 weeks. The baby will stop crying in 2 weeks. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. So that was a big drive for me as far as that goes. Through her podcast, I learned so much about perinatal health, women's mental health, and through that, and going back to the story, this fantasy book, the concept was a woman who was married and had kids, who met who another man comes into her life, and he turns out to be something that she's always dreamed of finding, I guess. The first draft was very cut and dry and had no soul in it. And as I was learning all this stuff about postpartum health and women's health and mental health, I kept going back to this draft because I've never seen a fantasy book with a woman character that went through this kind of thing, as far as postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, whatever you want to call it. And I just thought it would be such a great way to showcase that in the story that I created, about a mom, a woman who had all these aspirations and dreams before she was married. And then once she got married and had kids, all that went out the window because she lost a part of herself.
Mm,
The big thing that a lot of that's, I guess, I think now it's becoming more as far as like awareness to it. There's a lot more, I feel like there's a lot more emphasis on like women's health and stuff, especially with being moms and having children, um, now than there was like 3 years ago when I first started learning about this stuff, or 4 years ago. Um, but there's one thing that I learned that really stuck with me is that every woman who has a baby, like they basically are reborn themselves because who they were
mm,
before doesn't exist anymore. It's who they're kind of born as well because their body and everything changes so much after you have a child that the person that you were before is completely like gone, is gone. And it's, I never looked at it that way before, and it's so true. After I had my son, like I was not the same person anymore. I changed dramatically, not just physically, but like emotionally and mentally, everything changed. And just I could never go back to the person I was before I had kids. I can never be that
mm,
person anymore. And it's just was such a, it seems so like it seems like it's a no-brainer, but it really is like such a profound thing. And I just thought that was so important to showcase somehow. And this story was like the best. I feel like this book that I wrote is like the best place to showcase how hard it can be for some women after they have children, how much how much damage it can do if it's not recognized and if they don't get help for it.
mm.
And doing it in a fantasy space, like I said, I've never read a book where this happened in fantasy before, where there's magic and dragons and kingdoms and wars and all this stuff. It's always been more focused on like the male side. I mean, there's fantasy stories that are about women, obviously, who are strong and, ruthless, or they're like Sansa. I always think of Sansa Stark, who was the best story arc in that whole series. I feel like she was this like meek, like quiet, follow the rules girl, and she became this strong, amazing woman at the end. For their story, but like she's not a mom though. So I'm thinking of that kind of arc for
Mm.
someone who's like in that space. So that's where that idea came from, as far as putting it into the story. And it's funny because I took a writing class last year, and the person who did the class said that, oh, once you write a book and you finish the draft, if you put the draft aside, don't look at it for like a year, then the draft is dead. You can never revive it again. I think that's complete bullshit because I
It
wrote this
is.
draft in 2012. It's 2024. It's been 12 years since I first wrote this draft, and it's taken me this long to like get it published, but I needed that time. Like I needed to live my life and put all of those experiences in this novel to make it what it is today. I could never have published this book 10 years ago. Like I could never, well, now it's 10 years because my son's going to be 10. Oh my god. But I could never have published this book 10 years ago because I didn't experience all the stuff I experienced yet. So I could never have put all this stuff in it that I learned through my own experiences or heard from other people's experiences. So it just needed that. Um, so yeah, that was a long-winded answer to a very simple question. So I do
No,
apologize.
but do not apologize. I love it, and I ask because I have a friend from college, Dr. Samari Rios, a very good friend, someone whom I care about a lot. She focuses on postpartum, and she's been through it. She's been through a lot, and she
Yeah,
helps people in English and Spanish. She's based in New Mexico, and it's like when you don't talk about a topic, you don't see it. But then you talk about the topic with one person and you see it everywhere, or you see
yeah,
the need for it everywhere. So
yeah.
when I saw that you were working on that, I was like, huh. And also, some of the best lessons that I've ever had, or the best ways that I've been able to understand certain things in my life, has been reading a story, book, novel, whatever have you, or even a
Right.
poem, just because it captures the essence of something and it does it in a way where it's relatable. More than a
Okay.
textbook, a story is going to help me learn a lesson way better. That or life experiences where life just smacks you in the face.
Yeah.
Um, hearing that perspective and you going so in depth is exactly what I wanted, because yes, we need professionals doing the work that people like Samaria are doing, but we also need writers like you talking about things that are hard to talk about in a way that is intelligible, understandable, relatable.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, how many times have we gone through a really rough patch and Frodo was there for us, or Ankh Morpork was there to have me laughing while Mom was going under surgery, along with Pixie Piper, which is a character from one of my friends, her series. These characters have a way of lifting us up in a way that is very special, and people love to take for granted because they're silly. And they, oh, I read a big boy book that has notations and it follows the APA style. Who cares, dude? Give me something that I can take to heart, and I
Right.
think that will have more weight to it.
Yes.
So I love pivoting. So
Let's do it.
another pivot. I've known you for a while. We've known each other for a while. Something that I really enjoy from my friendships. There are certain things that are unique to each friendship. It's either a pet name or an inside joke or something between us. We share a lot of music and a lot of new music, and I've been able to discover a lot of new music thanks to you. You have some pretty great playlists on YouTube, and that's something that
Yeah.
not everyone does. How does music figure into your work, your process? How have the playlists helped you connect with people? How much enjoyment do you get out of making a playlist?
Yeah. So I always say that music writes the stories for me. I have an idea for a story. I have ideas for characters. But one job of an author is that you have to know your characters inside and out to make them believable. And sometimes you put them in situations that you've never been in yourself personally. So you're like, okay, how the hell do I do this? I could ask people if they've done it, but if this happened to them and get their side of it. But it's all about how you feel in the moment. So music is very much a feeling source of, like, you feel when you listen to music. Either you feel excited or you feel sad or you feel elated or you feel angry or whatever. It's a way to express your feelings, 100%. So I started creating playlists based on my books to help me kind of write the books. And there's a lot of instances where I needed to convey a certain emotion for some sort of scenario or for a character, and I didn't know what to do. So I would go and I would, you know, go on Spotify and find a song that I liked, and then you can do like find play this music, play this song's playlist, and it gives you like all these different songs that are related to that song, or even on YouTube the recommendations, and I would just like music hunt. Like I listened to all these songs.
Rabbit
Um,
holes.
Rabbit holes, yeah, and I would just find one that's like perfect. And there's a lot of musicians over the years that I just go to automatically. Like for this fantasy stuff, there's an independent artist named Crywolf who does all this really cool, like, I don't even know what kind of genre of music it is. It's just like all this different, like very emotional, powerful music. And he's like one of the only musicians to listen to that like I cry when I listen to his music because it's just so deep, and the wells of like emotion that he goes through are so dark sometimes. He basically wrote this book for me. Like his music is like, if he could write, if this book ever becomes a movie or whatever, I'm like, and we like someone to sing a song, I'm like, I'm gonna call this guy. It needs to be him 100% because he's wrote this book for me from the beginning. Like he's such an amazing artist and such a unique artist. But making the playlists are a lot of fun because I can kind of think about like where would this song play in the story? Like, would this be in the beginning of the story when it's a little more lighthearted, or would this be right at the climax when things are getting like tough? Um, so I feel like music kind of writes the books for me, and I find a lot of music that just resonates. And the playlists are just really fun to make because I just kind of just did that randomly one day. Like I made a playlist for my contemporary novel after I finished writing it, and then people started listening to it on YouTube, and then I just started making more and more and more and more and more. Those are more for fun now than for writing because I haven't written any contemporary in so long. But it's a great way to like find new artists and listen to new things, and just kind of like go down a rabbit hole of music. And that's my feeling as far as I feel like I can't write. People can write in silence. I cannot. I need something on. I need some sort of mood, whether it's like, I don't know. There's a YouTube channel called Blue Turtle, and they make all of this it's non-vocal, so it's all like instrumental fantasy music, and they animate a scene for the music. It's just so good. It's so good, and every week I feel like every week they have something new, and it's just a nice little background to have while you're writing fantasy. And there's so many other channels that do that. Um, but yeah, I just feel like it's music is like the heartbeat of most of my books, especially this fantasy book. Like there's so many influences that I pulled from. Crywolf was main one. Low Roar's another one. He was an artist. He passed away recently. Really, really sad. But he's really great. A lot of like he did the. You ever play Death Stranding on that game from the for the PlayStation?
No.
It came out like I don't know how long ago, but he did a lot of his songs are in that game. That game made him super popular because that game is very, very strange. Definitely my taste on video games. But he did a lot of the music for it. I knew him of him before that game came out. I knew of him for a while, but it was just such good music, and it lets you like just listen to genres of music you never listened to before, like
Hmm.
so it's like an adventure in itself, trying to like finding the music for your story.
Yeah. Which is a perfect pivot because the next question is you're a fan of video games. You just mentioned it,
I
and
am, yes.
we also talk video games. And your husband's business is selling video games.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
so you already mentioned one video game, but which other video games do you think people should play or that are your wheelhouse? What do video games mean in your life? And you can tell us even more about the other business.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely play a lot less video games than I used to, but as
Yeah, it's
far as
not
like
like you're
my
busy with a press and a
right,
Kickstarter and kids.
I've been playing a lot this week because I haven't had kids at home, so I'm like been playing a lot of video games. But I feel like games are just kind of do play them as how your mood, whatever your mood is in. Like I play games like Animal Crossing and
Mhm.
what else do I play? Well, Animal Crossing is like a good like relax game. Stardew Valley, another good relax game. Just to like mellow out. And I played it with my son. We played a Stardew Valley together. We have our own farm on there. But as far as like games that I like invest myself in, um, right now I'm replaying Dragon Age Inquisition, which is like a really popular fantasy RPG that BioWare came out with in
Mhm.
2014. This game is 10 years old. But I'm replaying it because they're having the new game for that series is coming out in the fall, and I want to beat it again before it comes out. So I love
Right.
RPGs. I love story-driven video games. Um, so that's one. Mass Effect as well is one of my favorite series of all time. There's a game called, oh my God, I'm gonna butcher the name.
Butcher
There was a
it.
game. There was a game called Heavy Rain, which came out a while ago.
That was for PS3. I did play that
Yeah,
one.
that game was great, and
It's intense.
it is so intense. And all those like story-driven games, like The Wolf Among Us was another one. The people who
Ooh.
did the Walking Dead games by Telltale, those games I love. And the other game that they did, I think it was called Chicago Be Human, which they did Heavy Rain, and then they did came with the Chicago game. That game was freaking awesome. Story-driven game. You play as like an android. You bounce between different androids. Like one's a cop, one's a nanny for this little girl. And was there two or three? I think there's three. But it was such a good game. I love story-driven games. Um, they could just be story, but they have to have some sort of like action element, because otherwise I get bored. Like
Mhm.
there's games right now where it's just like you're just like watching a story. I'm like, okay, I want to like do something. I'm here to play. I'm not here to watch a freaking story. Like I need to
You need
be part of it.
agency. You need
I
to
need
be
to
in it.
I need to be in it. I need to be invested in these characters. Um, and another one. What's one that just became a show recently with Pascal? What the heck was that game called?
The Last of Us.
The Last of Us. Yeah, that game was great. That game was awesome as well. All those types of games are like my favorite games to play. I love playing those types of RPG games where they're very character driven. They definitely, as far as influencing me on like my writing, I think they do. I
Mhm.
don't think I'm conscious of it and until like I'm like, oh yeah, like this kind of reminds me of XYZ. Um, but yeah, I love character driven RPG style games. I like shooting games too. I'm a violent girl at heart. I love like Metal Slug, classic Metal Slug. I can play that for hours.
Mm.
Um,
But
those types of
that's
games.
just turning your brain off.
That's
That's
true. Yeah.
it's like when you play a hack and slash or a brawler like Final Fight, you just
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
like the story is going to drive you,
Like,
and it's not like you're connected to reality, because it's like, okay, I need to recover health, so let me eat this Flintstone style piece of meat. It's like,
yeah,
dude,
yeah. Like my game I was playing in that picture recently that I tagged at the video game convention. Like that was just me shooting things. That was just me killing people in the game and shooting down helicopters, stuff like that. So I like those types of games too, but definitely like the more character-driven games I like a lot. There are some that I play that I didn't like. Um, some games that are just too aggravating, like freaking Dark Souls. I can't play that game. But I get frustrated very easily with video games. If I can't figure out a solution, or if I keep dying and restarting at the beginning instead of starting at the checkpoint, then I give up. So those are games are not for me.
I like a
But like,
challenge, but I don't like torture.
right, right. Like Plague's Tale is another great game. Silent Hill games, give me the horror games. I
Mm.
love them. I played Resident Evil for a little bit, but I don't know. I feel like I'm like married to Silent Hill. Like I feel like every time I play a horror game, I'm like, this isn't Silent Hill. This is not.
No, the thing is that
Oh,
for me, the first Silent Hill, I think it's still the best one, even though the graphics aren't the best, even though the controls are questionable at times, etc. But just that stress with the radio, and
hmm.
that first experience with a survival horror game, that was my first one.
Yeah,
I've tried to play Resident Evil, and it's just like I can't connect with the controls, and they come between
yeah,
me and the story and the game for some reason. And it's like, I'm not gonna play this. And then I
yeah.
just pick up something else, and eventually it's like, I really should play Resident Evil, and then I try again, and the same thing happens.
Yeah. I've been here for like a week, and then I'm like, or like a couple of days. Like I played Dead Space, which was really great when it first came out. The first Dead Space game that I
Yeah.
really liked. I like being. My husband will say he likes when I play horror games because he likes when I get scared at the horror games. Well,
No, but
when
I showed my age because I'm playing Perception, but I had to put it on easy because I couldn't handle the stress. It was causing me so much anxiety that I'm like, I'm gonna turn this off and I'm just gonna enjoy the story. And I also have Outlast 1 and 2 because they were on sale, and I'm like, am I ever gonna play these games because these are intense?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, some of the like when I play Silent Hill 2, like I was on the internet all the time looking up how to do things. But I was invested in that game. Like I was really invested in the story and the characters.
It's dark. It's
It's
dark.
really dark and just like and it was just so good. Like that game was so good. And then I played the third one, but I honestly haven't played any of the like the newer ones. I want to play The Room really bad, so maybe one day I'll play that one. But I've only played the
What,
first three. The
the
Silent Hill,
room?
The Room, yeah.
Ah,
When you're just in a room, you're just in the room the whole time, and you
I
have to get
couldn't
out.
get
It's
out. I couldn't get out of the first scene, and I was like, "What am I doing wrong?" And then
yeah,
I saw the game, some game facts, and I was like, "I still don't understand what I have to do." And I felt so stupid. And I was like, "I'm gonna play this later," and that game
yeah,
just ended
goes
up in a
away.
corner.
Yeah, it ends up forgetting about it. But I always go back to the like I have my favorites, but I always go back to like the RPGs. Like Dragon Age is great. It's a very long. It's very long. It's so long. Um, but it's worth it. The characters are great. The story is great. It's the open world one, so you can go anywhere. It's just really fun.
Okay. Okay. So had another question, but that one's that we can have like a 2 hour
Yeah, I
session
could talk about
just
video
for that.
games for a long time. So
Yeah, no, no. Okay,
I have
so
my favorites.
no, but we've talked about so many things. So tell us, what are the next steps for OA? As an author and with HenDragon Press, what are you most looking forward to in 2025? And just tell us what's coming along for you. Where can people connect with you, and with your different businesses? And just tell us what should we get excited for.
Sure. So Obviously for right now, I'm getting ready to launch my Kickstarter for my first fantasy novel, The Dragon Favorite. That's going live on Kickstarter on the 15th of September. But you can go on the pre-launch page now to sign up for notifications. So you're notified when the campaign goes live. So that will be fun. There's a lot of cool things in there. I'm going to have a standard edition book. I'm going to have an illustrated edition. I'm going to have tons of like art and bookmarks and things like that. I'm going to have an original uh, playlist for it. Like I've hired the musicians to write songs for this book. So, and
Ooh,
to adapt the songs I've written for the book as a real song. So that's been awesome, by the way. I highly recommend it for your own novels.
that
So,
is
so
awesome.
cool. Probably the best thing coming out of this is working with musicians with this book. It's been so cool and so fun. So that's really
Wow.
exciting. So that goes live the 15th. You can check that out. If you're following me on Instagram, I'm at OA Howdyn, just OA and Howdyn, no spaces or periods in the middle. All my links
The
are
links
on
will be
there.
below, and
Yep.
I'll include all the links below and all the links to playlist and her press and everything. You shall find it
Yeah,
below.
it'll all be there. The press is slowly building, so I'm excited for starting doing the anthology for that next year. That's planned for next year. Right now the website is up, and I'm getting the Instagram up next week, so that'll all be up. That's going to be at HenDragon Press. You can find the website on my OA Howdyn Instagram. I'm also on Threads, and I'm also this is something I haven't tidbitted about, but pivoting to my other author persona, I'm getting ready to query a novel for the Allison Howlett. So
Yeah.
there's a book that I wrote. Actually, it's a series that I wrote. I wrote the first two already that I really want to get traditionally published. So I wrote my query letter, I wrote my synopsis, and game was edited right now, and I plan on pitching that book at the end of this year into next year. So we'll see what happens with that. So
all, all the good vibes, but
all the good
in
things.
that one I did that one I didn't know about the music and I didn't know about this. There's always something new with you. I really love that,
Yeah, I
man.
try to keep
Thank
things interesting. So
you definitely do. Thank you so much for joining me here. My name is JD Estrada. She is Annika Howdyn, OA Howdyn. All the information to connect with both of us is going to be down below. This has been a great time. So until next time, by all means, be kind to one another, listen to one another, explore what drives you, and take an example from her. Just go
and
for it,
get a kitten.
and get a kitten, get a rescue kitten,
Get a rescue kitten. Yeah.
if possible. So till next time, peace, love, and maki-rolls. Thank you for tuning in, and by all means, share this with someone. Who knows? They might find it very interesting and instrumental to take that leap. Would be cool. So cheers,
Super
guys.
cool.